Hello guys, I'm Tom, and today we'll take a look at what gremlins are. Few creatures in fantasy cinema have left such a deep, unpredictable, and paradoxically, charming mark as the gremlins. From their first appearance on screen, these beings earned a unique place in popular culture thanks to their explosive combination of dark humor, uncontrolled mischief, and absolute chaos. At first glance, they might be mistaken for nothing more than playful monsters, creatures designed solely to provoke amusing accidents. But in reality, they have a biological and narrative background far more complex than most people imagine. They are the result of a fascinating life cycle that, at the same time, explains their duality. They begin as Mogwai, small, furry animals, adorable and almost angelic, and then undergo a radical metamorphosis that turns them into hyperactive, destructive reptilian beings capable of spreading real chaos in human communities or any environment they invade. It's no coincidence that, within the franchise, the Gremlins stand as perfect antagonists. Unpredictable in their decisions, volatile in their emotions, and so uncontrollable that even when they destroy each other, they do so with a macabre humor that is disturbingly entertaining. But before diving into their wild behavior and distinctive anatomy, it's worth going back to their deepest origins, those not directly mentioned in the films, but explored in greater detail in the official novelization of Gremlins, 1984. That book reveals a surprising truth. Gremlins are not an independent species, but rather the final stage in the Mogwai life cycle. And this is where the story takes on a tone more akin to a science fiction epic than a simple Christmas horror tale. According to the novelized account, the Mogwai arose accidentally as the result of a biological experiment conducted by an ancient, technologically hyper-advanced civilization that is virtually unknown to any human society. Ironically, this experiment had a noble purpose: to create organisms capable of spreading peace, understanding, and harmony among different worlds in the galaxy. According to the book, this mysterious alien race meticulously designed the Mogwai to be irresistibly cute, sociable, endowed with exceptional intelligence, and capable of learning languages and behaviors at incredible speed. Their adorable appearance was no accident, but an essential component of their biological design. The idea was that they would inspire universal empathy in any species they encountered. However, at some point in the scientific process, a critical error occurred, a tiny but catastrophic flaw in their genetic code. Without the creators foreseeing it, the Mogwai developed the ability to transform into gremlins, chaotic and violent creatures that represented the complete opposite of the original purpose. The novel even mentions Mentor Ser, the extraterrestrial scientist directly responsible for the project. His vision was almost utopian: to populate the galaxy with ambassadors of goodwill. To that end, he decided to send Mogwai to 3 different planets to test their adaptability. Earth was the final destination, but unfortunately, also the one where the mutation that produced the gremlins manifested most intensely. The miscalculation was devastating. Only 1 out of every 10,000 Mogwai proved stable, noble, and truly suited to the diplomatic purpose. The rest tended to display disordered impulses, excessive mischief, and, in many cases, a natural inclination toward malice or violence. Within the cinematic canon, only 1 Mogwai represents that pure ideal: Gizmo, whose kindness, intelligence, and self-control contrast sharply with the behavior of his corrupted counterparts. The novel also explains that the first Mogwai destined for Earth would have arrived in the Far East, specifically China. Over time, these creatures, or their transformed gremlin versions, spread across various regions of Europe, inspiring all sorts of local mythologies. Their influence is said to have given rise to stories about goblins, forest spirits, and small mischievous beings who sabotaged tools, broke household objects, or caused inexplicable mechanical failures. This connection between folklore and science fiction enriches the Gremlins universe even further, giving it a layer of cultural plausibility. The novel goes even further, suggesting that gremlins were responsible for acts of sabotage during World War II. The downing of aircraft, massive blackouts, and mechanical failures documented in real military reports. In some passages, it is even implied that they may have been involved in mysterious disappearances of people or entire populations, as if they were a chaotic force capable of altering human history from the shadows. This approach masterfully blends elements of science fiction, horror, and folklore, resulting in one of the most unique origin stories in the history of fantasy cinema. Now then, moving into their physical description and behavioral traits, gremlins possess an appearance as strange as it is unforgettable. Their scaly, reptile-like skin covers a small, agile body, approximately 1 meter tall. Their ears, enormous and pointed like those of a bat, give them an appearance that is both threatening and cartoonish. Their legs are short but surprisingly strong, ending in 3 sharp-toed feet, ideal for climbing, gripping slippery surfaces, or moving quickly through tight spaces. Their head, disproportionately large compared to the rest of the body, features yellow or reddish eyes that seem to shine with constant malice, a flat nose, and a wide mouth full of sharp teeth capable of tearing through hard materials and even light metals. Their arms, long and thin yet muscular, end in hands equipped with claws that work with unusual precision. They can manipulate human tools, from screwdrivers to improvised weapons, as well as sabotage electrical or mechanical systems with an almost intuitive understanding. Their skin color ranges from shades of green, brown, and gray to black, suggesting surprising genetic diversity within the species. Although their strength and intelligence vary from individual to individual, they all share essential traits: constant hyperactivity, a cruel sense of humor, a surprising creativity for causing chaos, and a capacity for organization that, despite their impulsive nature, allows them to collaborate when the common goal is to destroy or sabotage something. This behavior explains why so many legends associate them with technological failures and inexplicable accidents. A particularly curious aspect is that none of the known gremlins have shown a natural inclination toward kindness or empathy. Even in the absence of humans, they tend to attack one another, compete for minimal resources, or destroy things purely for fun. However, within their violence lies a psychological peculiarity. They rarely attack individuals who show absolute calm or who do not fear them. It is almost as if the lack of fear confuses them, discourages them, or at least causes them to lose interest. This reaction suggests that their aggression is influenced by external emotional stimuli, raising fascinating questions about their biology and social behavior. Everything suggests that, deep down, gremlins do not attack people out of hunger, survival, or any primitive need, but purely for entertainment. They are creatures that seem to feed more on the panic of others than on any physical substance. Their main motivation is not to defeat their victims, but to watch people lose composure and fall into a state of chaotic desperation. For them, human fear is a kind of circus spectacle, an emotional resource that stimulates and amuses them. In fact, when one observes their behavior more closely, it becomes evident that they seek to provoke exaggerated reactions, screams, confusion, or even collective hysteria. They do not necessarily need to harm their victims. It is enough to push them psychologically to the limit. A perfect example, perhaps the most revealing, appears in Gremlins 2, the new batch, during the segment in which the beloved Grandpa Fred broadcasts live from inside the research facility, being overtaken by these tiny creatures. From the moment the gremlins notice his presence, their behavior is as baffling as it is revealing. They do not pounce on him, they do not attack him, and they do not bite him. They surround him with childlike curiosity, approaching him as if he were part of the scenery or a new toy they are still trying to decipher. In an extended scene, probably one of the clearest displays of their twisted psychology. George and Lenny stand in front of him, staring at him with those bright, mocking eyes, but they do not lift a single finger to harm him. They only want to unsettle him, to push him toward that palpable nervousness they enjoy so much. It is a psychological game, almost a ritual of mischief, where the human's fear is the reward. The most curious part is that Grandpa Fred, far from falling apart, reacts in an unexpected way. He plays along with them, humors their antics, and acts as if he understands that his safety depends on not showing fear. It is almost as if he had intuitively understood the psychological code of these creatures. The Gremlin's life cycle, which begins with the Mogwai, is one of the strangest, most fascinating, and narratively rich elements in the entire franchise. Mogwai, in their initial phase, resemble small and charming animals. Furry, lively, expressive creatures that evoke a blend between a miniature koala, a childlike gremlin, and some sort of cute alien rodent. They have large eyes that convey emotion, curiosity, or fear in a very human way. When one of them comes into contact with water, a phenomenon occurs that completely defies any known biological logic. The Mogwai feels a brief but intense pain, like a sudden electric jolt, and small fur-covered lumps quickly emerge from its back. Within seconds, these protrusions grow, round out, detach, and fall to the ground, becoming fully formed Mogwai capable of walking, communicating, and acting independently from the very first moment. The official novel adds a key piece of information that reconfigures this entire dynamic. Mogwai were designed to reproduce sexually in a traditional and stable manner. The water-based multiplication mechanism is not part of the original design. It is a mutation, a side effect of a genetic flaw produced by the alien experiment that created the species. In other words, instantaneous reproduction, chaotic, painful, and uncontrollable, is an evolutionary error, an accidental mechanism that should never have been activated. The real problem appears when a Mogwai eats after midnight, a detail that seems absurd but is essential to its biology. This act triggers a transformation process that, under natural conditions, should never occur. The Mogwai's body hardens, its metabolism accelerates violently, and within a few hours it begins to envelop itself in a thick organic capsule. This cocoon, similar to that of a giant insect, is secreted from its own skin, like a mixture between a chrysalis and a protective casing for an extreme metamorphosis. The concerning part is that, since only 1 out of every 10,000 Mogwai is truly kind-hearted, most of them have a natural predisposition toward mischief, anxiety, and impulsiveness. That constant restlessness leads them to seek food at any time, especially during the night. For an ordinary Mogwai, eating after midnight is practically irresistible, almost an unconscious biological impulse, as if its own organism longed to accelerate its transformation into a more powerful and chaotic phase. Once inside the cocoon, the change is surprisingly fast and aggressive. Within hours, the Mogwai restructures itself from within, breaking apart its own biological framework to emerge as a gremlin. The resulting creature is larger, stronger, and endowed with a destructive energy that seems never-ending. Its texture changes. From warm and furry, it becomes reptilian, scaly, and cold to the touch. Its voice becomes higher-pitched and mocking, its posture more upright, and its temperament far more anarchic. The most intriguing part is that the metamorphosis, although radical, does not completely erase the identity of the original Mogwai. Many gremlins retain visual traits, gestures, or even habits from their previous phase. Extreme sensitivity to light, for example, is present in both Mogwai and Gremlins. Both can die if exposed to direct sunlight. This vulnerability appears to be part of the biological design the aliens attempted to correct but never managed to stabilize. Likewise, the ability to multiply through contact with water persists in both stages. A Mogwai generates Mogwai, while a Gremlin produces other Gremlins directly. Even aesthetic details can survive the transformation. The most emblematic case is Mohawk, whose distinctive mohawk remains intact before and after the change, functioning almost like a genetic signature. In the Gremlin phase, the reproductive rules change. They become more aggressive and more dangerous, both for humans and for the Gremlins themselves. When a Gremlin comes into contact with water, its body reacts immediately. Moist bumps appear on its back, which vibrate and grow at an alarming speed. Unlike Mogwai, who produce creatures that are cute but problematic, Gremlins generate other Gremlins directly, fully formed adults, already predisposed to destructive behavior. This process, however, has a cost. The multiplication is painful, debilitating, and leaves the original Gremlin exhausted, with irritated skin and temporarily weakened muscles. This weakening explains why some Gremlins avoid reproducing unless they have a clear motivation or are in an environment with enough resources to recover. Something quite curious, and frankly unsettling, is that, despite how painful and exhausting the multiplication process is for them, Gremlins possess an almost miraculous capacity for recovery. The process itself is brutal. Their skin stretches, their muscles contract, their body temperature shifts drastically, and their spinal ridges tighten like cords about to snap. During those critical seconds, the Gremlin appears on the verge of collapsing. But once the new creatures detach and begin scurrying around on their own, the parent is left panting, dazed, and momentarily weakened. What is striking is that this condition lasts only a few minutes. In less than an hour, a Gremlin can go from being doubled over in pain to running, laughing, fighting, and causing destruction as if nothing had happened. This accelerated recovery suggests an extremely efficient metabolism and an unusual regenerative capacity, almost comparable to certain species of reptiles or amphibians that can regenerate tissue or recover quickly from severe damage. However, in Gremlins this process seems even faster and, strangely enough, without any evident side effects. When we enter the realm of their diet, things become more complex. It is not entirely clear whether their bodies are designed for a carnivorous, omnivorous, or completely indiscriminate diet. The main source of confusion is that we almost always see them eating junk food. They seem to feel an innate, almost compulsive, attraction to sugary, greasy, or highly processed products. Chocolate bars, candy, ice cream, French fries, popcorn, gummies, marshmallows. Everything that would make a nutritionist tremble seems to be, paradoxically, their favorite type of food. This preference may be due to their metabolism requiring large amounts of instant energy, and simple carbohydrates and sugars provide that energy much faster than more natural foods ever could. As Mogwai, they are perfectly capable of digesting normal food. Gizmo eats chicken without any problems, and in Gremlins too we see Mohawk, Lenny, and George devouring ice cream with almost childlike ferocity, while Daffy eats a corn cob as if it were the most exquisite delicacy on the planet. This supports the theory that they possess a digestive system fully compatible with an omnivorous diet. What we do know for certain is that they deeply despise fruits, vegetables, or any minimally healthy food. It is as if their palate rejects everything natural, green, or nutritious. And although they are aggressive and capable of killing without hesitation, they have never shown interest in consuming human flesh. It is neither their goal nor part of their dietary behavior. For them, human flesh is not food, but it is a toy, an object to generate fear. As for their social dynamics, Gremlins form a hierarchy as crude as it is efficient, based solely on strength, cunning, and brutality. They have no complex structures or democratic leadership systems. In their society, the most dangerous one rules. The leader is the Gremlin capable of intimidating others, maintaining control, and unleashing violence without remorse. The rest accept this system with surprising naturalness. They neither question nor challenge their leader, unless they firmly believe they can defeat him. The only way to rise in rank is to attack the one above, ambushing him, weakening him, or directly eliminating him. This attitude generates an internal environment where betrayal is always latent, but which simultaneously functions as an extremely aggressive form of natural selection. In the first film, Stripe establishes his leadership thanks to his ferocity, his malevolent charisma, and his ability to manipulate the others. In the second film, the hierarchy shifts unexpectedly when the brain gremlin emerges, whose enhanced intelligence automatically places him at the top. His refined way of speaking, his cynical attitude, and his incredible strategic capacity make him a leader as dangerous as he is sophisticated, demonstrating that gremlin hierarchy can change depending on the type of mutation or abilities they acquire. Gremlins are not only physically strong, they also possess an unsettling intelligence. Even in their Mogwai phase, they exhibit cognitive abilities far beyond what one would expect from a small animal. They can manipulate their caretakers, fake innocent behaviors, plan situations, and, above all, wait for the exact moment to obtain food after midnight. This trait reveals a dangerous cunning, closer to strategic thinking than to animal instinct. Once transformed into gremlins, this intelligence becomes sharper, more sarcastic, and more destructive. They are capable of coordinating attacks, setting up ambushes, and using all sorts of human tools or weapons with almost instinctive precision. From chainsaws to pistols, including syringes and chemical products, any object can become a lethal weapon in their tiny hands. In terms of physical capabilities, gremlins excel in speed and agility. They can move through shadows without making a sound, making them expert stealth predators. They can climb, jump, slip through small cracks, and navigate tight spaces with ease. The most terrifying aspect is their resilience. They absorb blows, burns, cuts, and all kinds of impacts without suffering fatal damage. Their physiology seems extremely robust for their size. They withstand falls from considerable heights and continue moving as if nothing happened. This makes them difficult adversaries to eliminate, as even severe injuries only slow them down temporarily. If anything makes them extremely dangerous, it is their ability to replicate within minutes. A single gremlin exposed to water can multiply into more than a dozen, and each new individual is just as predisposed to chaos as the original. Within a few hours, they can form small hordes or miniature armies capable of overwhelming any location. Even so, their greatest strength is also their greatest weakness. Their obsession with fun and chaos makes them reckless to absurd extremes. They get into ridiculously dangerous situations just for amusement, and many times they die by accident or fall into traps that any more cautious creature would have avoided. When gremlins reproduce asexually upon coming into contact with water, the process is not only instantaneous and chaotic, it is also brutally exhausting for them. Every bubble that swells from their back, every contortion of their skin, and every new gremlin that emerges demands an enormous expenditure of energy. As soon as the process ends, they are left completely drained. They literally collapse as if all their strength had been ripped out. Their limbs tremble, their breathing becomes heavy and ragged, and for a moment their eyes lose that malicious gleam that defines them. It's as if their bodies temporarily shut down to recover from the biological shock. This vulnerability is, in fact, one of the few real opportunities to neutralize them without much difficulty. In that state, they lack the coordination and strength to attack, flee, or even defend themselves. They are explosive creatures, yes, but fragile when their own biology forces them to pay the price of their uncontrolled reproduction. However, The greatest weakness of the gremlins, the one that defines their species entirely, is their absolute intolerance to sunlight. Direct exposure to sunlight doesn't just harm them. It annihilates them instantly and horrifically. They burn from the inside out, as if the heat were carbonizing them in a matter of seconds. Their bodies melt violently, releasing a foul vapor and leaving behind a gelatinous green, malodorous mass. This fear is so instinctive that both Mogwai and Gremlins react with terror to any sudden flash. A flashlight is enough to make them retreat screaming, and a powerful camera flash can completely disorient them. With all of this, the general overview of their biology, behavior, and weaknesses comes to a close. And with that background knowledge, the time comes to delve into the most unforgettable gremlins that appeared in the saga. Creatures that, thanks to their designs and personalities, became icons of fantasy cinema. Stripe. We begin with Stripe, the definitive antagonist of the first film and Gizmo's eternal nemesis. His distinctive white stripe, almost like the mane of an alpha predator, is not just an aesthetic feature but a visual extension of his dominant and ruthless nature. Even in his Mogwai phase, he made it clear who he was: cruel, manipulative, and extremely intelligent. He mocked Gizmo, intimidated Barney the dog, and was one of the main instigators of the post-midnight chicken feast, the act that triggered all the horrors that followed. As a gremlin, his leadership is unquestionable. He is fast, lethal, and clever enough to use human objects as improvised weapons. He is the face of pure chaos. Vegetable Gremlin, one of the most unusual cases in the franchise. After ingesting a botanical serum in the laboratory, his body began to grotesquely fuse with plant elements. Leaves, roots, stems, and small vegetables sprouted from his skin, appearing as natural parts of his anatomy. His eyes were half hidden beneath thick foliage, and his voice took on a damp, almost bubbling tone. This creature is an impossible combination between a gremlin and a living vegetable garden, an absurd yet unforgettable mutation. The Brain Gremlin, perhaps the most iconic transformation in Gremlins 2. After drinking a serum designed to increase intellectual capacity, he acquired supernatural intelligence. His change wasn't physical but mental. He began speaking with perfect diction, developed refined behavior, an almost scientific curiosity, and a surprising eloquence. He adopted an elegant style, blue sweater and blazer, round glasses, and a sense of humor as sophisticated as it was sadistic. Despite his sudden education, he remained a gremlin, just one with the ability to plan large-scale destruction with terrifying precision. The Bat Gremlin. His mutation occurred thanks to a serum based on bat DNA, which granted him membranous wings and the ability to fly. His skin became rough, his nose took on the shape typical of frugivorous bats, and his claws grew longer and more curved. Later, the Brain Gremlin injected him with a protective compound similar to a biological sunscreen, allowing him to survive sunlight. His final fate is almost poetic. After a confrontation, he became trapped against the walls of a cathedral and ended up visually merging with the architecture, posing as a sinister living gargoyle. The Electric Gremlin. He was born when one of them drank a serum charged with pure electrical energy. His body disintegrated and reconfigured into a being of living electricity. He was fast, unpredictable, and extremely dangerous, capable of moving through electrical lines or discharging devastating bolts. He had no conventional solid form. His crackling silhouette fluctuated like an energized specter with no full control over his own powers. The Phantom Gremlin. After being struck by a corrosive chemical, part of his face melted permanently. In response, and demonstrating the macabre humor that characterizes the species, he decided to cover himself with a white mask and dress in dark clothing, imitating the Phantom of the Opera. His appearance, blending tragedy and mockery, made him one of the film's most unsettling designs. The female gremlin, probably the most eccentric transformation of all. After ingesting a serum that induced female characteristics, her body adopted exaggeratedly feminine traits. Long, silky green hair, enormous eyelashes, painted lips, and a taste for lingerie and flashy accessories. Although she is presented as a humorous character, her design is so strange and exaggerated that it becomes disturbing for reasons completely different from traditional gremlins. Mohawk. Mohawk is one of the fiercest gremlins in the sequel, known for his aggression and threatening appearance. After drinking a serum with arachnid properties, he underwent a radical transformation. The lower half of his body mutated into a gigantic spider-like structure, with long, jointed legs covered in dark hair. This gremlin-spider hybrid is undoubtedly one of the franchise's most terrifying creatures, capable of weaving thick webs and attacking from any angle. All of these creatures, from the most grotesque to the most ingenious, were created without modern digital effects. Only puppets, animatronics, practical effects, and, in specific cases, stop motion. That handcrafted attention is the reason gremlins still look astonishingly real even decades later. In conclusion, everything we know about gremlins within their cinematic universe reveals a unique species. Monsters capable of combining the most absurd slapstick with genuinely terrifying moments. They are unpredictable, ingenious, and chaotic creatures whose design and personalities have turned them into legends of fantasy cinema. Both the tender Mogwai and the wild gremlins are fascinating because they resemble nothing else in the film world. They represent the wild, the unexpected, and the delirious, all wrapped in a package as adorable as it is dangerous.